From the shadows to the light, we'll judge every fearsome sight. Gore and chills all in one night. Tune in now, it's pure delight. Rapid reviews, here we go. Quick and snappy, watch us flow. Scary movies, yes or no? Rapid reviews, steal the show.
Hello and welcome back to Rapid Reviews. My name is Scott and I'm your host today, but I am joined by a guest. If you've never listened before, Rapid Reviews is the show where we review movies rapidly. We talk about all the good bits and leave out all the bits that are really boring. I am joined by a guest, as I said. My guest today is the host of the Pop Culture Reflections podcast, member of the You Run podcast network, and his show is truly incredible. Unlike us that are just pigeonholed into our horror movie world, Justin covers everything from music through to TV shows through to wrestling. If it is relevant in pop culture, his show showcases it in a way that no one else does, which is why he's perfect for Rapid Reviews, because this man knows what he's talking about. So without any more messing around, welcome to the show.
Hi, Scott. Thanks for having me.
No worries at all. I'm thrilled you're here. Before we get into it, where can everybody find you?
Well, you can find me anywhere you would stream podcasts, whether it's Spotify, Apple, Google, wherever. And on socials, you can find me on X at Pop Cult Ref Pod, Instagram at Pop Culture Reflections Podcast, as well as Threads, and of course on the You Run Podcast Network.
Yeah. Justin is here to help us review Carrie. I'm going to kick this off really nice and easy. What is your favorite scene of this movie, if you can possibly pick one?
I can. So, and it goes back to my nostalgia, my connection to this film. It's the fucking prom. It's her getting dumped with pig's blood all over her. It's the iconic shot of her descending the stairs and wreaking havoc on everybody in that gymnasium. It's my favorite scene. It has stuck with me since I seen this movie at the much too young age of 6 years old, and I still
Oh,
love it to this
wow.
day. Yeah, yeah.
Wow. See, I've got a daughter that's 6. Honestly, I think if I showed her even 10 minutes of this film, she'd need counseling for many years.
Yeah. I don't know what parents were thinking in the 80s, Scott, but yeah, I was allowed to watch it, and it scarred me for a bit. But hey, look at me now as an adult. I love this movie. It's one of my favorite films. So I don't know what that says.
Yeah, the thing is, the 80s was a wild time. Like, you'd go to the video store, you'd pick up a couple of kids' videos, a couple of adult videos, and your parents wouldn't think twice about you watching Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and then straight after they would stick in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and you'd sit there on the sofa and watch it with them. That was just
Yep.
how it was.
Exactly how it was. Yep.
Wild. Um, my favorite scene in this is it's actually Carrie's breakdown at home. So after everything's gone bad at the prom, she walks home, and then the confrontation with her mum, where she just has the full meltdown and loses her mind. All of her powers completely go out of control, and the house caves in.
Yep.
Like, I love that. That is such a cool shot and a cool concept. And it's very much a redemption moment for Carrie because her mum is horrible.
Oh, the worst.
Yeah. Um, where are you with characters in this? So let's take Carrie out of the equation because we all know Carrie's everybody's favorite.
Yep.
Is there a character in this that you feel delivers as well as Carrie?
Yeah. So I hate Margaret White. She is awful, but you got to give Piper Laurie credit for an outstanding performance because she makes you hate her. She's absolutely terrible. Worst mom ever, I think. But I would say rewatching it more recently, I like the character of Sue Snell, played by Amy Irving. I think there's some depth there. I would even say I like Tommy too. Okay, as an adult watching Tommy, I think his heart was in the right place. I think it's hard to tell. It's a little ambiguous in a way as far as, did he really care about Carrie or didn't he? But yeah, for the most part, I like the performances, in this film. And although the film's a bit dated and the characters are a bit dated, I do like the characters overall for this movie.
Yeah, see, I like Tommy, and I, I think Tommy gets the worst end of this deal. I think of all the people who didn't deserve what they got,
Right.
I think Tommy's top of that list because whether he genuinely liked Carrie or whether it was just for that one night only, he was going to be a nice guy. However you cut it, he was a nice guy to
He
Carrie.
was.
He
He
wasn't
was. Yeah.
to her. Um, this movie is a very influential movie in lots of ways. One of the things it tackles is bullying,
Hmm.
and I find this very hard to watch on screen. Bullying something that I've got zero tolerance for, and it's kind of a bully revenge story. So they all pick on Carrie. Carrie gets superpowers. Carrie fucks everyone up. Is the
Yep.
gist of this movie?
Hmm.
Is Carrie the villain?
No. I no. I think all right, so I think it's her mother, but I also think it's Carrie's mind. And I shouldn't I hate to say it's Carrie's mind because I feel like in some ways it's justified because I'm like you. I have no tolerance for bullying whatsoever, and it does really bother me and trigger some things in me when watching this movie. But for that reason, and Sissy Spacek's performance, and just everything about her relatability. When I was in school, I wasn't the most popular kid. I was a small guy, so I get it. So there is no way, from any angle, any viewing this film, I see Carrie as the villain. Again, when I say her mind, it's that in some ways I don't think she's in control of her powers entirely. So that might be, considered the villain of the film. But I really think it's her mom, and I think it's society. I think it's the nature of picking on somebody that's different. I think that's really the villain of this film.
I'm so glad you said that because I've had conversations with numerous people who are like, "Well, Carrie's the villain. She killed loads of people." I'm like, Yeah, she did, but
Right.
but many of those were justified."
Exactly.
It
Yeah.
it
Carrie's the victim in this film. That's just there's no two ways about it to me.
No, and I really like Carrie's character. I really like Sissy Spacek is incredible in
Oh
this role.
gosh. Yes.
She plays a character that's so timid and so almost afraid of her own shadow because of the
Hmm.
treatment that she's had. And I my it's that there's not many horror movies I watch when I will say my heart goes out to a character, but her joy and how happy she is when she's invited to the prom. And I know that it's not going to go well. I just want to go, look, don't go. Just like your
Yep.
mum's an asshole and she screamed at you to stay in, but just listen to your mum just this once. I know she's bad. And I don't think there's any other movie where I can say I have that feeling for a character.
I agree, and I think that's what makes that whole sequence at the prom so effective, and the way that Brian De Palma decides to do a lot of that in slow motion and getting different shots of each character, and you just feel that tension building, and all you feel as an audience member is dread. And you're like, no, please don't let this happen. Somehow, just instead, turn back time, leave the prom, you don't need this. But at the same time, Scott, I don't want to lose out on Carrie's joy that she has while she's there with Tommy and that scene when they're dancing. And this is like the most joyful moment Carrie seems to have ever had in her life. And to have it ripped away from her is soul crunching, just heartbreaking. It's so awful. I love this movie, but you're right. Sitting there, it's just I have such adoration for her and as a character, and I hate to see her go through it, but it just makes it that much more effective as a movie.
Yeah, it does, but it's painful. It's painful to watch. Um,
100%.
I do like the fact that Carrie does have some allies, though. So she's got the school teacher,
Yep.
um, but I want to talk about the principal and the amount of cigarettes in his ashtray in his office.
There you go, late 70s.
Yeah, and again, like when I don't know if you're the same as me, but when I watch a movie that is of this age, I find myself spotting things and just going, "Well, that you'd never get that these days." I've
Yep.
reached that age now where I do it, and that is one where there's an ashtray right by the students, and it's full of cigarettes. He's got a cigarette on the go. The
Mhm.
teachers are all smoking, walking around campus, and I'm like, "What in the world is this? Like, you can't do that."
Yeah, different time entirely.
We're about midway through, and this is the point where we score the movie. We're scoring out of 5. So, what would you give Carrie?
So this is a tough one. So if I'm going to take my emotions out of it, my nostalgia out of it, because you probably guessed when I said I watched this at 6. This is my earliest horror memory. This is the first horror film for me, and I love horror films. Okay, so having said all that, my heart wants to say it's a 5 out of 5, but realistically, how it's made, the shots, the direction. I don't think it's perfect. Okay, I don't think it's perfect. I would probably say if I'm allowed to do a half
Yeah,
score, I would say probably 4.5 out of 5. But I also feel awful saying that, Scott, because I can't. You probably know what I mean, right? There's a difference between loving a film and calling a film a masterpiece or perfect or
yeah,
top scores, right? So it's really hard for me because I love it and I don't want that to get crossed. I do. I love it. It's one of my favorite horror films of all time, but I don't think it's perfect. I think it's a bit dated. I don't think all the performances, hit for me, but all in all, it's a strong 4.5 out of 5 overall for me. But I love it. I love it. I absolutely love it. Everything about it. It will be a rewatch for me for the rest of my life. So there you go. That's about the best way I can sum it up.
and for our regular viewers, that's how someone scores a movie properly. I score this purely on enjoyment. This is a 5 out of 5. I know it's got loads of issues, but it gets a 5 because I really like it. Issues aside, I like it anyway. Um, Speaking of issues, let's talk about religion and how religion is in this movie. Because I was raised Catholic, I understand the pressures that can be put on you in religion. But I'm going to say something that's controversial. The mum was a religious head case, and the dad
Well,
dumped her, and it just made her worse.
yep. You are
Oh,
100% hitting the nail right on the head there. It's absolutely accurate.
yeah. So what we're saying there, reading between the lines, is Carrie's mum needed to get laid.
Yes, I could not have said it better myself.
Um, what don't you like about this movie? Because when you score a movie at a 4.5, and a 5, it's very difficult then to pick apart. But if you could pick one bit of this movie that you would change, be it a cast member, be it an element of this movie, what would it be that you would take away or add to this movie to improve it?
Yeah, although I like some of the shots during the prom scene, I think some of the decisions made by the director on certain shots, there's that one sequence when the guys are like picking out their suits for the prom where it gets like sped up for a minute. It's like I don't know what he was going for. The other thing about this movie that is really not good is the fucking soundtrack, the score. There's times when the score is pretty good, pretty effective during the prom scene, but there's other times it just doesn't fit the tone of this film. And realistically, Scott, that's probably the only thing I dislike about the only two things I really have issues with in this film. As far as the actors in the film, I don't really have any issues with any of them. I think they're serviceable. I don't think John Travolta does a whole lot with that character, but I don't think that character has much to do. So I guess it's kind of fun to see him in this early role, but other than that, like I said, it's really just some of De Palma's decisions on whether it's the editing or the shots or the use of music and sound editing and stuff. It's just some of that doesn't line up for me. And like I said, the score at times is just a little hokey and doesn't fit the tone. That's probably my only negatives for it.
Yeah, see, my only negative is the library scene. Um, and just because of how ludicrous it is. So Carrie's developed some minor abilities,
Yep.
and she takes the huge leap in logic to go and take out a book that honestly is about as thick as my head on telekinesis.
Yep.
And I just go, how? That was not popular in the 70s. Like when this is set, like early 80s when Yuri Geller popped up, 100% that was a thing. But your library does not have a book that thick on telekinesis. And how did you make that leap of logic? Like your time frame is like you've got some Superman movies that are knocking around. You've got like you're going to think you're a superhero, not that you've got telekinetic powers. And it's just that leap in logic that every time I do it, I go, oh, like surely she should be like picking up a VHS of Superman. Like surely that's what she should be doing.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
but I like this movie, and I like it because it's a very dark movie with a very dismal, sad ending,
Hmm.
and I kind of like that in horror. I, I'm I'm not one for the hero riding off into the sunset, or I'm not even one for the hero getting a redemption and being okay at the end. Like I'm the guy in a slasher movie who's rooting for Jason to cut down the final girl.
Yep.
And in this, we actually get it. Like
We
Carrie,
Yeah, we
yeah.
do. And can we talk about that fucking jump scare, right? You don't I'm of the opinion you do not get Jason coming out of the lake in Friday the 13th, 1980 if it's not for the jump scare at the end of this film. And I love the way it's shot. I love that it's dreamlike, so we're not really sure is she dreaming this? Is this really happening? I love it. It's so well executed. So I wanted to give a shout out to that. I love that as well.
That jump scare is fabulously crafted. The first time I watched this, like, and I watched this young. I wasn't as young as you, but I was probably I don't know 12, maybe 13 when I watched this. And that jump scare was one where arms went in the air, whatever I had was thrown, like fall back on the bed. It's so well done
Yeah.
and unexpected. That's what makes it
Yes.
so good. Like her friends going to lay flowers to say we miss you. Like I did not see that coming, and
Not at all.
it's
Not at all.
so a great jump scare.
Yep.
The other thing that I want to talk about is obviously the sequence in the end of this where she demolishes everything at the prom and she sets the fire, and which is the fire in this is awesome. Like that,
Oh yeah.
the burning behind her looks incredible. And then she does her walk home, which is very sad. My wife calls it the walk of shame. She's like, it's the
Mhm.
walk of shame for what she's done. She feels bad, so she walked home. Um, in the remake, there is a section with a car where the car drives towards her and she does the whole holds the car up in the air. Where are you with what we got in 76 and the tone to how they upped the ante and made it very much more a superhero movie with the remake? Do you
Well, yeah, full disclosure, I have not seen the remake. I have not. I've refused to watch it for a number of reasons. Again, this holds a special place for me, being my first horror film. But as far as the sequence in '76, that's another thing I'm not a real big fan of. I don't like the way it looks. I don't like the way it's shot. It looks a little hokey, a little bit there. I don't think it's executed that well, and I don't know that we needed it. I think after everything that happened at the prom, and yes, I know that uh, Chris and Travolta's character Billy, I think his name was, they got away, and I get that we needed the her to avenge that, but I don't know. I just that scene doesn't quite land for me as well as the rest of everything that happens at the prom. I think it should have all taken place there. She took the walk of shame as you said, as your wife said, and then home and deals with mom. I think it's more effective if you do that. To me,
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. As for anyone who's interested on my thoughts on the remake, like it's a good remake. As remakes go, this sits in the upper echelon of doing a good job. But they done the one fatal thing is they lent too heavily on CGI.
Hmm.
There's some really cool scenes in it, but the CGI is now dated badly, and the original Carrie looks better than the remake.
Yeah.
So that's my issues with that. Um, I want to see this remade properly. I
Okay.
want to see this done. I would like to take a new version of this. So do Carrie, but do Carrie from the perspective of the bullies. So
I like it.
you don't see Carrie's perspective of this. You don't see all of her trauma and suffering. You see the perspective of the bullies, where they pick on this girl, they're really horrible to her, and then all of a sudden, oh fuck, she's got superpowers and she's ripping her arms off. I would
Hmm.
love to see that flip perspective. Would you take that? Would you be interested in that?
I would be interested in seeing it because I think it does put Carrie in a completely different light. Then maybe we do see her a little bit more as the villain. Maybe. I mean, you still have the bullying, so that part makes it the characters very unlikable then. But let's face it, there's plenty of horror films where we have very unlikable characters that are getting butchered by, villainous characters. So I'm interested in that. I think it would be a completely different spin on it. And if they're gonna do it, they got to do it differently. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of digging that idea actually.
As for the bullying, how do you feel the bullying in this is depicted? Because this is one of the, for me, one of the bullying in this is kind of like another level bullying. This isn't just pushing someone around. This is like my head just went,
Yeah.
especially that opening scene in the showers.
Yeah, it seems really extreme to think that usually when you get bullying, you have a select number of people that are bullies and, some of their friends that, tag along with that. But this seems really severe that you have basically every female in that locker room is in on this, on bullying her and making fun of her. It seems really extreme to me. So I think it's probably a little outside of realism, I think, because you would think there'd be a couple girls that would want no part of that. So that aside, I think there's a lot of realistic elements. I mean, fucking kids can be cruel to each other, right? So the whole thing with the pig's blood, I could see that happening. I could see that type of prank happening. Shouldn't be that way, but I certainly could see it happening. But I think that to your point, I think this takes it to the next level. It's a little bit more extreme than what you might get in the real world. But for me, it really is effective and it lands in many ways.
Yeah, and I'm going to say something now that may be controversial. It may be sexist. It might not be. Let me know in the comments. That's what they're for. Um, I'm going to say something that's out there, but girls are worse for bullying than boys.
Yes.
Like boys, there's an element. Like when I was at school, there's an element of bullying that there is in all school environments. But boys tend to end their bullying with some sort of fight. But with girls, there seems to be like no end to that cycle. There's no big fight at the end. It's just this ongoing mental torment. And maybe I'm wrong, but that's the way I see it. And like speaking to like my wife, like her experience of like that, it is worse. The girls are worse. They're more vindictive than the
Yep.
boys. The boys will be very matter of fact of like, haha, you've got a small dick. Like that's kind of you've got a small dick. I'm gonna give you a couple of punches for it. That's
And
kind
then
of where it is.
yeah, and then we're gonna be buddies, that happens a lot, right? So I agree
Yeah.
with you 100%, and I've gotten that same feedback from my wife or other women. It's like women cut a much deeper, and it goes on much longer, and, sometimes some women just will never like each other. So I agree 100%, and I think, again, that's why having a female protagonist in this film, if you wanna classify Carrie as such, I think works really well for this premise, and obviously the book itself. So I'm on the same page with you on that.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up that this is a book. So I spoke to someone the other day who was unaware that this was a novel.
Really?
which blew me. I'm a big fan of King. I've got loads of his
Yep.
books. Like Carrie is one of his better books. This was when he wrote Carrie, he was full into his cocaine and his whiskey, and he wrote very well under those conditions.
Yep.
And when someone told me, oh yeah, I watched Carrie, I was like, which one? They're like, oh, it was the 2013 one. I was like, okay, you need to watch the original. They watched the original. They're like, oh no, I preferred the other one. I was like, read the book. And they're like, there's a book. And like that moment, just like, I think this is one of King's better adaptations. Like this, the original Pet Sematary, the original It, and in fact, even the remake of It, I think are very good adaptations, but he's got a lot of bad ones as well.
Yep.
The Mist being one of them.
Yeah, no doubt.
But yeah, I love Carrie. I think it's a great movie. I think it's very poignant in dealing with topics that everyone deals with. You, at one point in your life, you are either a bully or the bullied. And anyone who tells me they're not one of those two things, they're lying, because no one sits on the fence all the time.
Yep.
And I think it's very good at delivering a message that you shouldn't bully, because sometimes one day you'll find someone who's bigger and badder who's going to end your bullying.
There you go. Exactly.
Yeah, I love this film. It is great. Justin, before we go, because these are rapid reviews, I know whenever someone comes on, they're like, shit, it's over. We're calling it already. But can you give us more information about your show? I gave you an intro at the beginning, but in your own words, tell us all about your show and where we can find you again.
Yeah, so I appreciate it, Scott. This was a lot of fun. And once again, I love Carrie. My nostalgia gives it a 5 out of 5. I just want to make that clear. I'm just overall the film and its quality, where I stand. But at any rate, yes. So my podcast, if you love pop culture, if you love the 80s and the 90s and, even beyond that, 70s, 2000s and whatnot, if you're into pop culture and all the things included, whether it's music, movies, television, toys, pro wrestling, then I probably have an episode that's going to appeal to you. So it's all about my connection to these things and what they mean to me and what they mean overall to pop culture. You can check out this show on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, pretty much anywhere you can stream podcasts. And of course, I'm part of the network, so you can check it out at yourunpodcast.com.
Okay, fabulous. Everyone go and check Justin out. He's super cool and he super undersells himself all the time. Like his show's awesome. And for someone like me who I love horror. That's why I do everything I do. I am fully in on horror, but I also love professional wrestling. It's something I grew up with. It's something that my children, like my boys, now watch professional wrestling. So when Justin does a wrestling episode, I'm like, it's like SummerSlam 89. Oh shit, I need to listen to that. I remember watching that. And then he'll do a music episode and I'm like, oh man, I've got that. I haven't listened to that album in ages. And then I'll listen to Justin talk about it. And then I'll get that album on Spotify and it'll be playing in the car. Like your show's awesome, man. It really is.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
A huge thank you to Justin for coming on. A huge thank you for everyone who watches Rapid Reviews and all of our other content here. Make sure you go and like and comment and subscribe. And just to make sure you do that, Cartman, tell them.
Be sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already.
Huge thank you again, and we will catch you all.
Be sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already.
Cartman wanted to say it twice.
Yeah, I love it.
We will see you all next time. See you all later.
Thank you.
From the shadows to the light, we'll judge every fearsome sight. Gore and chills all in one night. Tune in now, it's pure delight. Rapid reviews, here we go. Quick and snappy, watch us flow. Scary movies, yes or no. Rapid reviews, steal the show.